Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is DB333, and welcome back to Hard to Find 4, The New Order Last Days of Europe. In the last video, I got to do the accent now because I realized I forgot to do it again. I'm not going to do the accent right now. Credit rate went up. That was nice. We're working on detangling ourselves from the German economy. Also pretty nice. And there is a terrorist plot to try to take over the government. Bit less nice, if I'm honest. So yeah, that's my week. How's yours? Your guys's? Let's do that. So working on building that prison in Cork. We're getting there. We'll be done in like March. Which this game might be done by March, honestly, but oh. Though actually, we got some extra production units, question mark? We did. So put all those to civilian factories. So we got the defense build done. We gotta do something in the meantime. So let's do, let's meet with the Jews. Well, if it's talk of sectarian fighting and violence between the faiths, it's easy to see Ireland as a case of Catholics against Protestants, but that isn't the case, and Ireland isn't so religiously binary as one may expect. We have a sizable Jewish community that's been mostly ignored and forgotten these past few years, and we should begin to remedy that. We'll start with a series of high-profile visits to Jewish synagogues and community centers. By highlighting them, we can begin to court their support. If we show Ireland is home to faiths that can coexist with the rest, we may be able to begin an interfaith dialogue and encourage some form of ecumenism in Ireland. Still digging our poverty rate out of the shitter, but from there, so far so good. 10-hour work days, illegal child labor, that's good. Trinket minimum wage. I was looking at them, because I'm playing them more, I think I said off camera, and they're long dead by now. But I was looking at it, and already I saw one of the first few focuses of the economic tree. The ending, it's, what is it? Changing the slavery law from no slavery to corvée slavery. And so I just looked and I was like, oh no. This is going to be a fucked campaign, isn't it? Well, not a good look for Bennett, boy. Is it? Speaking of Bennett, I gotta play this guy sometime soon. The bill passes. Wonderful. A change for the better, or so you can hope. Might want to return intellectual property after this. Bormann has conquered Heydrich. So it looks like Germany's finally going to be able to do some shit. Met with the Jews. Let's go ahead and return it intellectual property. Oh, we can't even do this before unless we're in a faction with Germany, so that makes sense. Trademarks and patents, such an American way of doing things, privatizing intellectual physical property, ensure those with the money to claim it first receive the rewards. Despite our misgivings, it might be worth considering for Ireland to get back on track with respecting the American and more generally oath and derived intellectual property rights. At least on some nominal level, what we can plausibly deny hardly counts after all. The Americans ought to appreciate the gesture for what it is, and even if we don't, their businessmen will. In the end, to sacrifice for greater good, what else is there to do after all? So that'll decrease inflation. Paraguay falls. Well, so much for that. Little Uruguay has control over Asuncion here. That's cute. Yep, Bormann returns. And with that, we gotta start worrying about Germany and shit. So I want to guess there's going to be some event popping up sooner rather than later. That puts us back into the Unity Pact. Bormann just won. He just won. I think I got done saying that dry. Democracy returns to Italy. That's nice to see. Return intellectual property. Next, let's do... Let's wait and see if this will get us, if we'll get back into the faction anytime soon. I actually asked that before they won, before I said Bormann lost. Oh no, oh no. That's a delay. That's my bad. I just read that before you heard that. It happens. Let's go ahead and do some... Let's go visit the president. What the people need is something that can take their mind off the stats for a few moments. Something that can take up time on the news. Something that can bring people out on the streets aside from the offer of super unemployment subsidies. Something truly momentous in the history of our young nation. We'll send a notice to Washington. Their president is humbly invited to visit Ireland for a historic tour of a nation with visits to many points of interest. Some aid from America will also be requested. In the end, will be a hint that this may be good for improving the prospects among the sizable Irish diaspora in the United States. If he accepts, we can have a week of grand occasions and celebrations that will make us more patriotic. Come on, Baldman Bennett, you know you want to do it. So much for the gamer moment. Sorry, Kev. I blame Kev for not being in here for that happening, for the record. Respectfully, Kev. Pull up, you blimey cunt. Oh, it looks like the front with Zhukov is going to win, which isn't too bad. I'll take that. The shield is broken. Haha, epic gamer moment. Oh, fuck off, IRA cunts. Bugger off, I should say, maybe. That's more appropriate. Gamer moment, truly. The Irish, the Bretons, the Welsh, and the Scottish. All nations descend from that legendary group of tribes all so long ago. All nations have recently been granted their liberty, and all nations left adrift by the recent turmoil on the continent. What if we started working together to plot our future course? Of course, any grand Celtic alliance would be impossible at this point, given our unique government's leanings and domestic politics. But that doesn't mean we can't get a few diplomats from these countries in a room in Dublin and have them talk to each other in general terms. We don't have to come up with any firm commitments or specific plans for the future. The mere idea of a coordinated Celtic future will make the people of these nations happy for this event. So there goes Sverdlovsk. Seems like it's going to be a kind of boring, generic sort of victory here. Cheetah winning. How often does Cheetah win? I'm trying to think. I don't see him win as often as I feel like I do the others. Germany restores control over Central Europe. As in, when they do that, they can go elsewhere. So I'm expecting a letter back any second. Let's go ahead and do some late show appearances. Of course, just broadcasting drama set in the 1800s isn't going to get people listening to our message. They want to stay informed, to know the people making the decisions. We cannot just ignore that and rely on subtle inferred messaging to get our point across. So I want to take a direct approach. Politicians will be encouraged to go on these new talk shows and even have televised debates. We'll take our case directly to the people and defend our policies on their merits. Mass media is here and won't be leaving anytime soon. Now we will use it for our full advantage. Oh, yeah, sure. Just Burgundian aid, casually. Maps of underground state unity. Looks like Ethiopia won over here. It's fun to see. Kenya. Kenya's doing okay. Somalia. Okay, not bad, not bad. Eritrea. Could be worse, probably. I don't know. Alright, so it's Samara versus the front. Already versus the front, it looks like. West African Alliance. Prime Minister Lamass stood off to the stage, silently nursing a cup of coffee as he waited for the show to begin. He silently regretted agreeing to do a live interview instead of one recorded at an early time, not to mention wondering why they had a talk show at the bloody half until midnight in the first place, but he knew that the good press this would bring in would be well worth it. Suddenly, the bombastic brass theme for the show played, and an announcer boomed, "Ladies and gentlemen, to whom it may concern, it's the Late Late Show!" Woo! Lamass strolled onto the set, where host Gabriel Gay Byrne was already sitting at his desk. After a handshake, a sit-down, and some trite small talk, they got down to an honest interview. Plenty of topics approached, from the Germans to the Americans to elections. But the minutes dragged by, Lamass felt drowsiness tug at the peripheries of his vision once more. At one point, he paused to yawn and asked, "Sorry, could you repeat the question?" But when he looked, Byrne was staring in stunned silence and asked, and the audience was snickering like school children when a friend caught passing notes. "I said, Tausig, I trust you're giving the utmost attention to the delicate matter of Ulster." Lamass gulped. Yes, of course. Apologies. I'm used to having bedtime at 7. Byrne in the audience chuckled at the quip, but inside Lamass still cringed. He knew the quote would come to haunt him tomorrow in the newspapers. Not a good look. Well, for now, let's look to the past. We've accomplished one great and grand opportunity to accomplish all of our aims at once, to remind the people of our history, to capture their attention away from the economic crash, to bring a grand unifying event to everyone of our shared Irish heritage. And events like these may truly be once in a lifetime. The 50-year anniversary of Easter Rising is coming up. This week, the week that the armed insurrection against the British colonizers began, leading to our eventual independence and liberation. We must assemble a committee to begin planning for it. This will be the biggest event of the year, and we want to do it right. Speaking of doing it, waiting for a chance to do that. Still got a little bit going to the surplus, or our reserves as it goes along, which is always good. Let's go ahead and pay off some debt. Can't hurt us. I'd imagine it can't hurt us. Well, so much for Italian democracy. Now that the fires over Europe are out, Germany is once again has a functional government that assumed total control over the country. In our case, this represents our only chance to recover. To avoid economic collapse, we need to regain our old partnership. With the end of the German Civil War, we've requested to join the Einheitspact once again as a Bundespartner. Germany has gleefully accepted our request, expressing their desire for the partnership between our two nations to last for a long time. In our current circumstances, it seems that the Reich is guaranteed to stabilize our damaged economy. Our dependency on Germany is evident, and it's a conversation we need to have once our country is strong enough to decide its own fate. We are back under the German fold. Well, for how long that'll be, I don't know, gamers. Because it's time for the Pact Observer Bill. The pieces are falling into place at last. We can afford to openly show some distance from German Reich now. Let's see how those fascist toadies in Germany react to our next piece of political theater. Won't be anything dramatic, of course, merely a shifting of our status within the Pact from being a direct member to that of an observer to better represent our status of the Reich. The Americans will be a fulfillment of our agreement to distance ourselves, to the Germans a sign of our subordination, recognizing that we are not equal partners. We play the game as it comes to us, as we always do. Let the others think of our actions as they may. Radicalize the bill, and in theory we don't even have to do anything from here. I will keep a steady eye just in case we do. Oh, I think it's a new thing for the Indonesian War. I like that. I like that little ditty for the Indonesian War. Pact Observer Bill. Federalist unifies. Reginald Moss and his wife Faye loaded up their car for a short trip to the grocery store to purchase some eggs and bread. The driveway of their Belfast home, they opened the doors for a new Rover and get inside. Like many times before, they get inside with Reginald in his driver's seat and Faye riding in the shotgun position. Reginald fumbles with his keys for a bit before finding the correct one, inserting into the ignition, turning it to ignite the engine. Unbeknownst to either Faye or Reginald, it also ignites a block of plastic explosives hidden in the engine compartment. The deaths of the Protestant couple on Emerald Street would ordinarily be a week-long story, but now it hardly seemed like the day's news. Every day more and more attacks on Protestants happen. Every day the IRA grows more powerful and more active. Every day brings retaliatory acts on Catholics as well. And every day the government seems impotent on the rising tide of violence. It's clear the government is losing control of the situation. This is not a temporary wave in violence. Something is going on behind the scenes here. A reason why the government is ineffective, a reason why the IRA is more active, and a reason that the people like the Moss family are being killed off in droves. We must solve the case, and fast. Well, right now we're walking on a thin line. So, the free world is right across the Atlantic. We can see that golden city upon the hill in the distance, its shining majesty calling up Ireland and her democratic values to make that leap of faith. But so too is there a pit of what could go wrong separating us. The great menace of the Reich circling the waters like some beast from the depths of hell. We shall walk that narrow, long, and arduous path to reach that city without a leap. We should walk it because, for all that is a slower method, it will eventually bring us to the city. Till the day arrives that we can shrug off our chains, we shall be the obedient dog at the master's side, all the better to one day plunge in the knife. There we go. Let me get some more water soonish. And what we're dealing with here is possible foul of the Irish government. Fuck you, Michael, said Brigadier Hefferton. He looked around the room at all the people there. Lamass was on the opposite end of the table. HoI, the head of the guard, Inspector Doherty, and various other government officials lined the sides. All paid close attention. I'm not going to mince words, gentlemen. Over the past few months, the ICG has experienced a dramatic upswing in its power and size. We've seen the results: a massive increase in the violence in Northern Ireland that's become uncontrollable, massive numbers of people joining the organization, and now the ICG stands roughly parallel to the Irish government in terms of arms and power. There's more. Our intelligence indicates a large number of officials in the government are openly friendly with the ICG. It sympathizes with aims. These people are pro-German and rabid right-wing ultranationalists. Through them, the ICG may have avoided our efforts to detect and arrest them. And through them, they intend to launch a coup against the government. The darkest moment in our republic's history has come. What we do now will determine if we want to remain a free republic or be taken over by the extremists. So, gentlemen, what's the next step? How are we going to solve this? Doherty's hand went up. It's an interesting conundrum we're in, of course. I led the investigation into the arsenal, and I found plenty of evidence that should help the investigation. Guns, yes, but also information related to possible coup attempt. Has anyone followed up on this? They all looked at Doherty with blank expressions of confusion. After asked, "What?" "You know, the ICG warehouse down at the docks. The one with all the firearms, the decommissioned British weapons, the old IDF guns, the rocket launchers, remember? The guy that attacked my house? We found a bunch of plans for the ICG to siege Dublin in there. Does anyone remember this?" "Inspector, what are you talking about?" Doherty thought he was on drugs. How come they didn't know about this? It would have made the top of any newspaper if it got publicly released. And it must have been at the top of the briefing sheet for the Irish government, so how could it be that no one had heard of this? Now, this wasn't a mistake. He knew the paperwork and evidence. He had the paperwork and evidence to prove back at his office. He knew what he saw, and he had the officers to prove it. This couldn't be an accident. There had to be an explanation of why no one here had heard it. It took him only a moment to realize the prime suspect. Time to ask Kelly some hard questions. So, French military alliance. Change for the better, or so we hope. Emphasis on the hope there. Dire circumstances our beloved Ira's suffering. The economic crisis has recently hit our country, and the geopolitical arena is continuously in motion. In this context, leaving the past behind is a necessity to have a brighter future for Ireland. Today, we have given the first step to decide our own fate outside of Germany and their machinations. After a long debate, the Iraqs have approved the Pact Observer Bill, changing our status inside the Pact from Bundespartner to Pact Observer. We shall still receive the economic advantages of German dispute without committing to any other kind of dependency. We've sent a memorandum to Germany explaining that, in our current situation, we are capable of assuming our responsibilities inside the Pact, assuring that we'll not abandon the alliance. It's unlikely they'll accept the explanation, but it'll buy us some more time. Despite everything, we did what was best necessary for our people, not German interest. Our path to political independence has begun. Our partnership with Germany is reaching its end. Brigadier Kelly was in his bathrobe, picking the newspaper up from the doorstep when he was suddenly grabbed and taken to the ground by a group of men in suits. He struggled, but it was hard to fight against a man and holding down each of his limbs. As he looked around to see what was going on, he noticed a group of uniformed guard officers marching into his house and two plainclothes inspectors flashing their badges at him. One of them seemed incredibly familiar. "You're under arrest, James Kelly. You are being booked on charges of treason, terrorism, conspiracy to defraud the government, and conduct unbecoming of an officer. Legally, I have to say that anything you say will be used against you, though you've done enough already." "What the fuck is this, Inspector? I was under strict orders from Ministry of Defense at all times." "Save your breath," said Brigadier Hefferson. "You have been pinpointed talking to Blaney at the docks, the same docks, with the warehouse holding the British guns, the same guns you were investigating falling into the hands of the ICG, the same guns that you hid from the guard and the Irish government. You're going away, Kelly." "You idiots! Everything I did was ordered by high command. Go through my house, you'll get the evidence. The Defense Ministry told me to do all those things. They're the ones you want if you're prosecuting my actions." Jefferson and Doherty looked at each other. If Kelly was right, then they knew what that meant. We must secure Dublin immediately. about to improve our cooperatives with them, but we can't do that with no bill and act. So, "1964 Winter Olympics a success, boys." Even though it's 1965, I was about to say that doesn't seem right, but it is what it is. Where once Ireland was associated in America with treachery and the hated German fascists, now we're associated with something entirely different. Irish culture is undergoing something of a renaissance in polite American society, some not-so-original parts like St. Patrick's Day as well. While once lobbying for the old country was a sin, now it's merely the decision of a shrewd businessman who sees a way the tides are turning. Ireland is America's friend after all. Its steadfast ancestral homeland for many of its poor souls, and a homeland to which they are proud to have connections. The economy is good, the publicity better, and Ireland walks stronger at the end of the day. Poverty rate is doing pretty well, about to get below 39%. Something about the 4 officers murdered by the IRA hadn't sat right with Doherty. The case by itself was open and shut with eyewitness testimony, firmly placing blame on the organization. Nothing about it was irregular or unusual, except for the tasks and the reason as they were recalled to Dublin. Ordinarily, he would shrug it off as just unrelated military business that he had no right to know. Doherty had been in the army. He knew that they only told anyone as much as they thought you needed. But now it seems suspicious. At first, the barrier of classification had been so high he couldn't get over it, but now, with a coup imminent, and by the full force of a guard behind him, it was much less so. They simply marched in and took the records related to the officers with them. Everything was there, classified or not, and Doherty drove into them, looking to find the hidden key to this. Suspected most of the documents were bunk things that the police already knew or were not relevant to the case. Their most recent posting, however, was. They were tasked with guarding the warehouse where ICG weapons were meant to be stored, and that suddenly made all the pieces fall into place. The officers were guarding a warehouse with firearms. Part of an army plot, they were letting the ICG come in and take what they needed. However, the government had gotten suspicious over the irregularities that had inevitably developed, were recalled to Dublin, but they never made it. Thus, the weapons cache and the plot had been kept secret until Doherty had stumbled onto it. But the attackers were IRA, not ICG. What was their part in it? Why did their name pop up in this unrelated investigation? Well, let's ask them ourselves. How's that prison coming along? Not bad, we'll be done in December. So to be clear on this, nobody in this case has actually been charged or convicted, correct? Alright, but you come to me and say you know who did it. The Army thinks they know who did it. They have several members of the IRA picked out, and we've traced them down to a safe house in Limerick. So we could go in there and take them into custody. It will be a quick operation. But the problem is that we lack the evidence to go after them, correct? Unfortunately, it was already determined that we lacked the evidence to arrest the people in this case. But this was before it took on the outsized importance, so I'm asking for special permission to detain them without charge in order to investigate the attack. Inspector, you know the ability to deprive Irish citizens of their freedoms is something that isn't exercised regularly. It's done in the most exceptional of cases. Well, sir, nothing about this is ordinary. That's why I came to you. This case could be the key to unraveling the old ICG conspiracy against the government. If we get these guys, we can find out just what the IRA's role is in this, and break the ICG's organization. Brigadier Hefferson, your thoughts? I trust Doherty. He's a good inspector, and he hasn't made a mistake so far on this. If he says this is necessary, it probably is. That was all that Lamas needed. Alright, you have the green light on this, Inspector. There we go, boys. Raids on terrorists weren't the unusual task of the Garda, but Doherty had been with enough to understand they were treated with a bit more care than the average no-knock raid on a narcotics dealer. Heavy weapons were the norm, and the discovery of the warehouse full of ex-military weapons given them more cause to take extra precautions. But it all came down to the actual raid on the safe house, which began as a guard officer broke the lock with a blast from a shotgun. The door flew open, and the rest of the officers began storming inside the building. 2 suspects on the bottom floor were taken into custody without incident. Top of the stairs, however, one saw the police breaking in and began running. A blast from a shotgun loading with riot rounds did nothing to stop him. As the police stormed onto the second floor, an IRA member popped out in the hallway brandishing a pistol. He was hit square in the chest with a rubber bullet, knocking him to the floor as a bullet went up in the ceiling. Before he could get up, the pistol was kicked out of his hand, and he was handcuffed. A few moments later, Doherty got the all-clear from the inside, and he was allowed to enter. The first signs showed extreme promise. Several weapons were uncovered, and Doherty knew at an instant the guns were unusual. Lee-Enfield rifles, manufactured in the UK in 1942, pistols using 38 S&Ws. Obviously, the IRA got their hands on some British war supplies of their own. But that didn't shock Doherty so much as the suspects would police hauled down the stairs. The commotion and shouting between the guard and their detainee caught the inspector's attention, and what he saw made Doherty's normally stone face fall open agape. It was that fucking name that I can't pronounce even remotely alive and well. What else are we gonna find in this house?